Imagine trying to solve a massively complex puzzle where the pieces are constantly shifting. How exactly does a nation simultaneously feed the world, pioneer cutting-edge artificial intelligence, and completely rewrite its tax code to fuel just unprecedented economic growth? Well, welcome to this explainer on the Union Budget 2025-26, where we are going to decode the strategic blueprint for India's economic future.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Because, this is the grand challenge of modern economics. You are looking at the fundamental problem this budget is attempting to solve. How do you engineer a high-octane growth economy while simultaneously maintaining strict fiscal discipline and inclusive welfare? It's a massive, delicate balancing act. You've got to push for rapid infrastructure development, absolutely. But you also have to ensure that literally no citizen is left out of the growth story.
But to really grasp the solution, we've got to look past the raw numbers. Don't just think of this as a spreadsheet. The budget is essentially a strategic structural blueprint for Viksit Bharat and Sabka Vikas, a developed, genuinely inclusive India. The mechanism here relies on targeted development that's explicitly aimed at four main pillars: the poor, the youth, farmers, and women. It's about eradicating poverty not just by handing out subsidies, but by actually building long-term rural resilience, global competitiveness, and a highly skilled workforce.
So here is the game plan. We're looking at an engine and fuel architecture. First up are four growth engines: agriculture, MSMEs, mega investments, and exports. Then we'll look at the fuel powering them: reforms and taxes. And finally, we'll wrap up with a quick analysis.
All right, Engine 1, agriculture, moving from survival to surplus.
So to make India the food basket of the world, we really have to ask, why are we stuck? Well, the core challenge is rural underemployment and low crop productivity. The mechanism to actually fix this is the new PM Dhan Dhanya scheme. What's happening is the government is partnering directly with states to target exactly 100 deep rural districts. We're talking about places that currently have below average credit and low crop intensity. And the intended outcome? A massive productivity transformation for over 1.7 crore farmers. It's a total game changer.
Now, what's really interesting about this number, 5 lakh rupees, is the sheer scale of liquidity being injected right at the ground level. The government is expanding the Kisan credit card loan limit from 3 lakh up to 5 lakh rupees. And look, this isn't just some minor policy tweak. It is the removal of a massive financial bottleneck. It puts vital working capital directly into the hands of the farmers who need it most, allowing them to finally adopt modern farming techniques.
And it's not just about throwing money at the problem. This capital is backed by some serious structural missions for self-reliance. We are seeing a brand new 6-year mission for pulses, specifically Tur, Urad, and Masoor, which guarantees procurement. Add to that the rollout of over 100 new high-yielding seed varieties, a dedicated Makhana board in Bihar to streamline processing, and a cotton productivity mission. Collectively, these initiatives build a complete end-to-end ecosystem of national self-reliance and, crucially, better remuneration for the farmers themselves.
Moving on to Engine 2, MSMEs, fueling the middle.
You see, MSMEs are basically the critical bridge connecting rural agriculture to massive corporate investments. But historically, we had a weird problem. Small businesses were actually afraid to grow, because scaling up meant they lose their protective MSME status and all the benefits that came with it. So the bold reform here enhances the investment limit by 2.5 times and the turnover limit by 2 times. The impact? Businesses can finally aggressively expand, hire more people, and increase production without being penalized for their own success.
And this change creates a much broader ecosystem with some incredibly targeted support mechanisms. For instance, 1 million micro-enterprise credit cards are being issued in the first year alone. There's a massive 10,000 crore rupee startup fund of funds. And this is huge. Term loans up to 2 crore rupees are being unlocked for 5 lakh first-time entrepreneurs, specifically prioritizing women and SC/ST founders. All of this directly fuels the new national manufacturing mission, pushing us forward in clean tech, EVs, and solar.
Next up, Engine 3, mega investments. It's all about infrastructure, innovation, and people. So the crucial point is, you absolutely cannot sustain a high-growth manufacturing sector without physically building the future, right? And that requires staggering amounts of capital. So how does the government fund all this without triggering massive debt or ruining fiscal discipline? Well, they're relying heavily on an asset monetization plan for 2025-30, aiming to generate a colossal 10 lakh crore rupees. Combine that with 1.5 lakh crore in 50-year interest-free loans to states, plus a 1 lakh crore urban challenge fund. Basically, they are unlocking dead capital to build brand new infrastructure.
Now 20,000 crore. I want you to lock this number into your memory because it represents the new nuclear energy mission. The strategic objective here is to fund research and development for small modular reactors, or SMRs. The government's target is to have 5 of these indigenously developed SMRs up and running by 2033. This is a massive, highly strategic push toward long-term clean energy independence for the country.
But hey, infrastructure isn't just steel and concrete, right? It's people. Just look at this human capital matrix. 50,000 idle tinkering labs in government schools to foster early innovation. 75,000 new medical seats to bolster healthcare access over the next 5 years. 15,000 crore rupees in the Swamiha Fund just to complete stalled housing projects. And formalizing gig workers by giving them e-Shram identities and PM Jan Arogya healthcare. Healthy, educated, and securely housed citizens. That is the very workforce required to actually execute the Make in India vision.
Which brings us to Engine 4, exports. Taking India global. Because once we actually produce a surplus, we need to sell it to the world. And that means eliminating trade friction. The new Bharat TradeNet is going to provide a unified digital platform for all trade documentation. On the physical side, a 25,000 crore maritime development fund is going to rapidly expand our port capacity and shipbuilding capabilities. And in the services sector, a new national framework is being established to push global capability centers, the high-end back offices of global corporations, out of the major metros and deep into Tier 2 cities.
And now for the really exciting part, the fuel reforms and taxation, unlocking capital and ease of living.
Look, high-growth engines absolutely demand high-octane fuel. In this case, that means deregulation and massive capital liquidity. The structural transformation begins with just making it easier and far less intimidating to actually do business. John Vishwas 2.0 is actively decriminalizing over 100 minor legal provisions. It shifts the government's entire stance from suspicion to trust-based compliance. On top of that, opening the insurance sector to 100% foreign direct investment, provided those investments stay in India, is just a massive green light to global capital markets.
And this brilliantly illustrates probably the most talked about macroeconomic policy shift of the entire year. Under the new direct tax regime, the baseline for zero income tax has been pushed all the way to 12 lakh rupees per annum. Think about that. For salaried individuals, once you factor in the standard deduction, you can earn up to 12.75 lakh without paying a single rupee in tax. No way, right? It's a complete paradigm shift.
Let's unpack the real macroeconomic strategy behind this relief. Yes, on paper, the government is absorbing a massive revenue loss, estimated around 1 lakh crore rupees. But they aren't really losing that money, are they? They are structurally transferring it directly into the hands of the middle class. By expanding the limits on tax-free income, doubling senior citizen interest deductions, and raising rent TDS thresholds, the government is essentially betting the house on middle-class consumption to turbocharge the broader economy.
All right, time for the final analysis, our concept mastery revision.
So, we've gone through the mechanics, the investments, the tax shifts. Now let's synthesize everything. The achievements on paper, they're undeniable. We're seeing unprecedented tax liquidity injected into the middle class and massive credit expansions for MSMEs. However, the hidden challenge lies entirely in execution. The actual success of those 1.5 lakh crore state loans or the transformation of those 100 deep rural agri-districts, well, that relies heavily on seamless cooperation and public-private partnerships at the local state level. Because remember, policy is written at the center, but it is executed on the ground.
All right, for ultimate concept mastery, here is your rapid-fire recap of the absolute must-remember facts. Number 1, the massive 12 lakh zero-tax baseline for the middle class. 2, the 4-engine growth model of agri, MSME, investment, and exports. 3, the highly ambitious 10 lakh crore asset monetization plan, driving infrastructure without piling on debt. 4, the 20,000 crore leap into nuclear small modular reactors. And finally, number 5, the radical expansion of MSME definitions coupled with those 5 lakh microcredit lifelines.
So, the blueprint is set, the capital is allocated, the government has built the economic engines and injected the financial fuel through massive, sweeping tax reforms.
But as we look toward the future, the ultimate question remains: will the complex state-level execution actually match the staggering ambition of Viksit Bharat? It's a fascinating economic experiment to watch unfold. Keep analyzing, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.